You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network, your home for hockey talk covering every team in the NHL. New episodes every Monday. Download at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.
I was walking through the halls of a Minnesota rink when along came a Wild fan who started talking smack to me. He said, I bet you never liked the Blues until they won a cup. And so I calmly turned to him and said, hey man, listen up. I admit it's pretty great to win Lord Stanley's prize, but listen, I've been waiting for this moment my whole life. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Heartbreak's all I knew, man. That team from old St. Lou, man. Got a cup in here, 52, man. Give me a Let's Go Blues. I know Federico, Turnbull, Gilmore, Brown, Channel, Bothwell, Babich, Mahar, Mullen, Millen, Sutter, Pedersen, Pavsey, Curry, Zuckley, Uthart, Hunter, Schofield, Reeves, Ramage, Kia, Dunlop, Wickenheiser, Crombie, Benning, Raglan, Ewan, Micheletti, Ramage, Romney, Kozlowski, Evans, Cavallini. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Heartbreak's all I knew, man. That team from old St. Lou, man. Got a cup in here, 52, man. Give me a Let's Go Blues.
Hello and welcome to Bluenotes, based in the best city in the Mississippi, the best in the Midwest, better than all the rest. We've got that Stanley Cup power, too sweet to be sour. And if you're still clueless, I'm talking about St. Louis. We are your home for Blues coverage on the Hockey Podcast Network. I'm your host, Tom Franklin, joining you each and every week here. Now we're doing streaming live thanks to StreamYard, so you might notice the aesthetics look a little bit different this time around. We got a new program here that'll hopefully enable us to stream in better quality. That's a little easier to manage than our previous software that was kind of clunky. And then we also have the ability to read your comments on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on the air, and we can actually show them to you as well. So if you want to message us on any one of those platforms we're streaming on right now, if you're watching this, please feel free to do so. Of course, this episode will be released on Monday, just like every Monday on the Hockey Podcast Network on your favorite podcast platform. So just search for us in iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. Just search for Bluenotes, and we will be there. It is just me this week. We sacrificed Wags to the hockey gods to get not one, not two, but three notable Blues figures on this episode of Bluenotes. Actually, we didn't sacrifice Wags. He went under the knife this past week, and the surgery went very well. He's very thankful for your support, and hopefully he will be back soon. We were going to have Trainwreck on with me this week to talk some Blues hockey, but it was his birthday, and his girlfriend surprised him with a trip to Denver. Of course, he lives in New Orleans, so big weekend for him. Happy birthday, Trainwreck. We'll have you again probably next week and even beyond. But it's just me this time around. So, again, you can find us at Bluenotes Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We just started that this week. And on Twitch at Bluenotes Pod. Also, we're on YouTube, but, unless you're, really famous, they won't let you change your URL on YouTube. So you'll just have to search for us on YouTube until we, get famous enough to have our own custom URL. So we have some things coming up in the future for you here on Bluenotes. One of those things, we are getting some new merch. And we have a new provider for our merch. I'm not ready to really bust down the doors of that quite yet, just because we're waiting on a thing or two from our higher-ups at the Hockey Podcast Network. We're doing this on our own, and it's going to feature all our new branding, our new logos, things like that. I hope to have something to show off to you next week. I'm hoping to get something in the mail from them this week, a sample, and let's just say that if it is as good as I think it is, you're going to want this. I love the new color scheme that we have here. It's that retro, blue and yellow that the Blues had in the in the 70s and the early goings that we had in the Winter Classic, and it looks really good in my opinion on our merchandise. But in the meantime, our current store at What For Apparel is still up. If you want to get the classic Bluenotes merch, you can go there. Links in the description below. So, who do we have on this week? Well, if you can't read behind me, the first guest here, we have Jeremy Boyer, the blues organist, the longtime blues organist. And you may have seen Jeremy doing some organ duties on from home during the bubble playoffs. Of course, he couldn't be at Enterprise Center to do them, but I got to talk to him about little about that, and just kind of like how does one become a blues organist? You know, it's not like something you go to your guidance counselor in high school and say, "Hey, I want to be a blues organist." Well, you know, it doesn't quite work out that way. So we talked to him a little bit about that. We have our boss Isha Jerome checking in, well, one of them anyway, saying, "What a setup." Of course, Ish helping make what you're seeing here all possible. So thank you very much, Ish. Dylan calling me a beauty, which actually is not true. I just shaved and I got a little red from my skin's a little sensitive from shaving, so you might see a little blotch here or there. So, but Dylan, I appreciate the compliment. Thank you so much. No, Wags did not get a vasectomy. He got the guts stomach version of that, I guess, if you will. But he's recuperating at home. He's doing well, you know, I guess as well as he can right now when you have, you know, part of your intestines taken out of you. So he's on the mend. I don't know if we'll have him next week. We might. But in the meantime, just, you know, any thoughts and prayers, you know, we appreciate it here on Bluenotes. And again, we have Jeremy Boyer coming up. Now, we also see here, we have Bob Plager and Barrett Jackman. You will hear Bob Plager and Barrett Jackman on this episode. I wish I could say I took credit for interviewing them, but I did not. My colleague at KMOX, Tom Ackerman, you know him, you know, longtime pregame and postgame voice of the Cardinals, and just a KMOX icon for the past couple of decades. I went to him this week and I said, "Hey, I really liked your garage happy hour interview with Bob Plager and Barrett Jackman. Do you mind if I run some of that on Bluenotes?" And he said, "Absolutely. I want people to watch these garage happy hours." Basically, it's Tom Ackerman sitting in his garage having a beer with you and talking to guests, and it's just a good, fun, chill thing that he started during the pandemic. Of course, Tom Ackerman, if you've ever seen him or met him, you know he's one of the nicest guys in St. Louis media. So he was a big calming voice during, you know, the initial days of the pandemic, and you know he was able to have some big stars on, and that includes this past Thursday when he had Barrett Jackman and Bob Plager. So we'll play some of that towards the end of the episode. Meantime, in the playoffs, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are now up 3-1. That game just finished right before recording. Pat Maroon, the hometown hero, getting a empty net goal at the end. It was nice to see him get on the scoreboard here. Hang on just a second here. Sorry about that. My cat decided to become a part of the broadcast, or at least try to become part of the broadcast by knocking my camera off. You know, I have a little webcam, and he decided, you know what, that wire would be just really tasty. So apologize for that little jitter you just had there. But regardless, so Tampa Bay is up 3-1. On the other side, you have the Dallas Stars, who are up 3-1 on Vegas. A surprise for me, but not a big surprise for some. I know Wags was very heavy on the Stars going into the conference finals. He predicted them to win in 7. I still think Vegas will take at least one more game, but you've got to be impressed with how Dallas has looked these playoffs so far. I mean, you know, and as a Blues fan, you know, I don't have anything against the Stars at all. You know, I gained a lot of respect for them in the past couple of years. You know, 2018 when I went to Dallas, the fans treated me well. And then 2019 as well, you know, during that whole, you know, cup run, you know, it just felt like two warriors going at it, you know, and I gained respect from them, you know, from that series. Asa Lindell's side, of course. But I feel really, you know, if it ends up being Dallas in the finals, you know, Vegas is kind of my second team. Dallas might be like my number 3 or 4 team. I'm happy if Dallas goes on. I think that fan base has waited long enough. I think Anton Khudobin is becoming a big story of this playoffs. which is surprising to think about when you think of the Dallas Stars. Us St. Louisans, we know Dallas, partly because of Ben Bishop, the pride of Chaminade High School. He's been missing. He's been MIA. You can put his face on a milk carton this playoffs. It's been all Anton Khudobin, and he's been a big story this playoffs, even at the expense of the St. Louis kid. And then, of course, Tampa, you still have Maroon and Kevin Shattenkirk, a couple former Blues. So it looks like the Blues will be well represented in the Stanley Cup Finals this year. And next episode, we will talk about that. Hopefully, these series don't wrap up before then, so the Stanley Cup will start after our next episode. We'll see about that, of course. Of course, I don't want anyone to wait for hockey, period. I love hockey. It's going to be a little while before we, a few months before we get the regular season for the NHL, which looks like might be sometime in December. So enjoy the hockey while it lasts. Speaking of former Blues, we have the 2019 Stanley Cup Championship reunion going on in Montreal. This week, Joel Edmondson was traded by the Carolina Hurricanes to the Montreal Canadiens for a 5th-round pick. And that kind of surprised me a little bit. He's an unrestricted free agent, so he could still go to free agency, but I think Montreal's keen on signing him. Remember back in like the late 2000, like 90s, early 2000s, when you would have trade rights being traded from team to team. Like you would have I think Mike Richter was a Nashville Predator technically for a couple days because they traded for his rights, to try to sign him before it goes to free agency. Well, kind of a throwback deal here. And, Montreal's got a lot of cap room. They've needed a lot more beef on their defense in general. And they need more talent on their defense in general. And they got a lot of cap room to make some moves at the expense of other teams. They got Jake Allen on the cheap for a 3rd-round pick, and now they get Edmondson on the cheap for a 5th-round pick. This is going to be one of those off seasons where, did you see the Minnesota Wild trade the other day where they got Bukestad, Nicholas Bukestad from Pittsburgh? His name was escaping me, for nothing, and they covered half his salary. You're going to see a lot of those deals this offseason, and I don't know if the Blues are going to be on the wrong end of those. I hope that someone like a Tyler Bozak might, we can get his money off the books completely, but we'll have to see. This has been already a fairly unpredictable offseason, and we're not even in the offseason yet. We're still in the conference finals. But the Edmondson trade surprised me because I thought Edmondson was doing well, but it turns out that Joel Edmondson does not have fans in the analytics community. We're going to take a look at a recent graphic by JFresh Hockey, who's a good guy to follow if you're into hockey analytics on Twitter. As you can see on the bottom, he's at JFresh Hockey. He's not a fan of Joel Edmondson. It's very fair to say. And in fact, I'll go ahead and read his complete tweet whenever he released this here. It's this whole string of tweets, and you would have thought that Edmondson ran over his cat or something. Joel Edmondson, UFA rights acquired by Montreal, was one of the worst defensemen in the league this season. He would likely be the worst left-handed defenseman on the Canadiens by a sizable margin. Ouch. He continues. Evolving Wild project him at roughly 3-year, $3.9 million contract. I doubt that's the number, but I would stay away regardless of the cap hit, especially considering that all of Mete, Kulak, and Chariot have been much better than him, all left-handed defensemen for the Canadiens. Continuing, this was exactly the kind of solving a problem you don't actually have move that I expected the Habs to try to make. Their left defense is not the problem. Fans should hope negotiations fall apart here. Good grief. And then continuing, also that 18-19 bump looks pretty good until you realize that it's the only even okay season of his career so far. And you can see that in the graphics on the image that you can see on the screen right now. And then he finishes off this complete evisceration of Joel Edmondson by quoting Jack Hahn at Jahan HKY, former assistant coach and a current NHL analyst. Some non-metrics on Edmondson. Very little patience with the puck. Off the glass as soon as he sniffs pressure. Defense skating is exploitable by skilled players. Wanders all over the ice in Carolina instead of supporting teammates in predictable spots. Now, those last two sentences evoke some memories from me when it comes to Joel Edmondson, and it makes me remember one of the reasons why he was scratched a couple times during the Stanley Cup final itself and thus became expendable. He is not the greatest skater. I think Blues fans, we all know Joel Edmondson had the mobility of a tree sometimes. He's as physical as a tree, he's as sturdy as a tree, but he sometimes moved like a tree. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Hal Gill at times, honestly. He was that slow. And he also tended to be out of position quite a bit, whether it was on offense or whether it was on defense. He's still a big physical defenseman that, can clear space in front of the net. You just have to keep him in front of the net and not have him wandering off in, la la land somewhere. Positioning was an issue with him, and his skating was an issue as well. He's not a franchise defenseman. I think it's fair to say that, and I don't, but at the same time, guys like him, you need in the NHL. You need physical guys that can, mix it up a little bit, play with some sandpaper, as they say. And I know our Hurricanes host, Zach Tompkins from the Siren Sounder podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network, he talked a little bit about Edmondson with me, and he said the trade took him by surprise because he thought that he had acclimated pretty well in Carolina. And that's what I thought as well. I thought Hurricanes fans really, really liked him. But I guess, with the pandemic and everything that's going on, Carolina only had X amount of dollars to move around, and someone had to go, and it ends up being Edmondson. So he is joining, probably will sign with the Montreal Canadiens, will join Jake Allen as the championship DNA, so to speak, as our friends at Habs Nightly would like to tell us anyway, to try to get some championship prestige on that team. So we'll see how that goes. Other notes on free agency, the Blues were signing Jacob Delarose this week to a 1-year, $700,000 contract. Okay, I guess. Fine. He's depth. He is absolute league minimum. He did not wow me at all. And I guess that's his style. He's a very boring defensive player. He won't put any stats up on the stat sheet at all. But he plays with some grit and sandpaper, and they like that. If you're gonna be a depth forward, it's a lot better to be a depth forward that can bang than a depth forward that can maybe put 10 goals in the net and not do much else. So he is what he is, and he is a $700,000 player. And also Jeremy Rutherford reporting from The Athletic reporting this week that no progress between the Blues and Alex Pietrangelo. So that roller coaster continues as I take Joel Edmondson off the screen there. There we go. Au revoir, Joel Edmondson. But Pietrangelo, I keep going back and forth on whether or not he's staying, whether he's going. It's really hard to read the tea leaves on this one, guys. It really is. At this point, I think he's going to test free agency. I think if he was more open to a St. Louis return, the news would not be so bleak coming from Jeremy Rutherford. There'd be some talk about how they're working towards a compromise, which I think was Doug Armstrong's quote earlier. But we're not getting that right now. So we can only go with what we know. Doug Armstrong is not one to negotiate these things in the media. I don't think Pietrangelo wants that circus either. So we're getting breadcrumbs here. We're not getting the full steak dinner here when it comes to the negotiations between the Blues and Pietrangelo. So we just got to wait it out. We just got to see what happens here. But if I had to guess, I think Petro sees what's out there at the very least. It wouldn't surprise me if he still comes back. It would not surprise me at all. And the Blues have made at least one move towards that happening. So we'll see what happens with Petro. I know a guy that has an opinion or two on Pietrangelo and just free agency in general. He hails from Hawaii. He is the one, the only Hawaii Blues fan Guy Bensing. And let's go ahead and hear his Aloha commentary.
The NHL playoffs are in full swing. They're into the conference finals, game 5 and 4 of the East and Western Conference finals, respectively. And it really got me to thinking about the Blues and what's going on. Dallas is up on Vegas 3-1. They are one win away from advancing to the Stanley Cup Finals. Wow, one win away. At the beginning of the season, Dallas made some moves that a lot of people had scratching their head. They signed Joe Pavelski, aging veteran. But look at them now. They're looking pretty smart. So with that being said, what do the Blues do? Well, Armstrong in the past has surprised us. He's made good moves, he's made bad moves. And the NHL has come out and said that the draft will be the 5th and the 6th, and free agency will start on the 9th. Could be the 7th, but I think it's the 9th of October. Now, if you're Armstrong, your number one most important question is Pietrangelo. What do you do with Pietrangelo? Well, I think you've got to look at this. If he's gone, and he more than likely is, how do you replace him? And that got me thinking about Moneyball. Moneyball? Yeah, that's right, Moneyball. And baseball. In the movie Moneyball, they talked about having to replace Jason Giambi. Well, the statement back to that was, you can't replace Jason Giambi. But maybe you can replace his numbers. So that got me thinking about Pietrangelo's numbers. And I pulled them up, and I'm going to look on my phone just to make sure I read them right, because my memory ain't great. He had, this year, had 16 goals, 36 assists for 52 points. You know, that's replaceable. 22 of those points, though, were on the power play. That's an important number. Then the thing that I don't have is his time on ice. He led the league, or at least led the Blues in time on ice. He spent pretty close to 24 to 26 minutes a game on the ice, if not more. You take that away, now you need to replace that. But a smart person doesn't replace it with just one player. You replace it with 2 or 3. First off, Colton Parayko, Colt 55, can step into that place. I have all the faith in him. I think that he's that guy. I really do. So what you have to do now is use your defenseman to bring up that space that Colton stepped up into. You need to use your bottom 6 forwards more, right? Get more people involved. And we have a good amount of young talent down on the farm. Let's use that to replace the numbers of Pietrangelo, not replace Pietrangelo. His leadership, I think, can be taken over by O'Reilly. O'Reilly has definitely shown he's one of the top guys in the league. The team follows around him. He's the first on the ice, last off the ice. He's the proverbial, rah-rah guy. Let's see what he can do when it's all on him. We know at the beginning of 2018-19 there was some conflict in the locker room. That got resolved. So let's see what happens as we move on. Then we move to the draft. Now the Blues have, I think it's 6 or 7 draft picks. They have a second round, 2 third rounds, a 4th round, a 5th round, and I think 2 7th rounds. I think they don't have a 2nd round and they don't have a 6th round or 5th round. One of those 2 is missing. With all of that being said, right now, what's our most important, what area could we elevate the most? And I think that's goalie. There is a young goalie from Russia. I can't pronounce his name, and I'm not going to try to. He's the 10th overall rated prospect. The chances of him being taken in the top 10, I don't think are that good. A lot of people see him falling somewhere between 13 and all the way down to 23, 24. Well, that's the area the Blues pick. So jumping up into a spot to pick him may not be a bad idea. Bring him over here. He's already playing with men in Russia. Let's see what he can do. If he's that type, if he is a Martin Brodeur, Patrick Waugh, or Dominic Hasek type goalie, I'm all for it. Bring him in. Let's see what we can do. It might be that spark that helps this whole team out. As the draft comes, I hope to do another draft show. I just did an interview with Mike Liu, hoping to get another interview with a forward who played during the Pavel Dmitry years. Hope to have that out this week if I can get the timing set. And I've still got my contest going on the Hawaii Blues Fan Clan. So guys, this is Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, saying aloha, mahalo, and Tom and Wags, you definitely got to know that I am bleeding blue with you. Aloha.
And you always gotta love the Hawaii Blues fan, and he makes an interesting point. You know, could the Blues take a goalie in the draft coming up here? I haven't really thought of that. I know they have Joel Hofer, who is in the world had a big breakout World Juniors performance this past winter, but he's a long ways away, and you know, I think the Blues and Blues fans have to accept the fact that we have another question mark in net, you know, and this is something that we should be used to, and you know, but we should also be used to the fact that goaltending is voodoo, and so you know, you may have a Jordan Binnington come out of nowhere and have a hot run and you know lead your team to a cup, but it's what he does in years 2, 3, 4, and 5 that make him a long-term guy, a long-term Blue. And, you know, goalies can be just very volatile in general. And I do agree with his assertion that if Pietrangelo does go, I think it is Ryan O'Reilly as captain. I know Jim Thomas from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch had him on a couple weeks ago. He agreed that it probably should be O'Reilly as well. So coming up next, we will have our Bluenotes face-off of the week. It is Blues organist Jeremy Boyer, and caught him right before he went out to a wedding this weekend. So we chatted a little bit about the bubble hockey and him not being in the arena while these games are going on, Stanley Cup memories, and just what got him into being an organist as well as just being a fan of the musical arts itself. So we'll have Jeremy Boyer coming up right after we pay some bills right here on Bluenotes.
This episode of the Bluenotes podcast is sponsored by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-belt grooming, offering precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Got a crazy bush? You know if you trim your hedges, your tree stands taller. Have you ever wished she was smoother down there? She probably has too. If you're anything like me, and or just not a neurosurgeon with a steady hand, you probably neglect below the belt. Manscaped has us covered. Millions of balls are about to be nick-free thanks to Manscaped's advanced skin-safe technology. Manscaping accidents are finally a thing of the past. Whew! One of the coolest features is the LED light, which illuminates growing areas for closer and more precise trimming. That's insane! If you're listening to me speak right now, you're one of the first people to hear about this life-changing product, and I want you to experience it firsthand for yourself. Get 20% off plus free shipping when you use the promo code THPN at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. Get 20% off and free shipping again with promo code THPN at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com when you use the promo code THPN. The best in men's below-the-belt grooming.
And that beautiful NHL 94 music means it is time for our Bluenotes face-off of the week. And we are pleased to be joined by the organist for the St. Louis Blues, Jeremy Boyer. Jeremy, how you been lately? I know the Blues are out of the playoffs now, and so what are you up to lately?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. I played two Cardinals doubleheaders this week, so kind of back into the swing of things after about a 6-month layoff because of all the COVID stuff, but otherwise doing pretty well.
That's good. That's good. And let's go ahead and talk about your history, with, as an organist. I mean, first of all, what got you interested in the piano or organ, and where does your love for that for music begin?
When I was in school, I was in band and I was in choir, and I just, my mom had played a little bit of organ before I was born, and we had an organ at the house, and I just kind of applied what I do from band and choir, learning music, to the organ, and just kind of came in naturally after that. I was in sports all through school. I played 4 sports a year, so just kind of the mix of the two was just kind of the perfect fit for me.
And at what point did you even think of being a blues organist? I mean, were you I know you're a big Norm Kramer fan, the original blues organist, but at what point in your life did you say, I'm going to be a blues organist?
Probably when I was in high school, I thought, doing sports music would be kind of cool. You're in pep band for basketball, or, marching band for football and those kinds of things. And I enjoyed that. And, I listened to Ernie Hayes all growing up as a kid and got into a lot of what he played, and would kind of listen for those subtle little things he would do during a game to kind of make things interesting. And it's probably during high school that I really thought, this might be something I could pursue one day.
Yeah, absolutely. And, did you go to a lot of blues games at the old arena growing up?
So I think like a lot of kids my age, when we were growing up, started following the team about the time Brett Hull got traded to St. Louis. Of course, he was a big influence on a lot of kids, and, they grew up in the 90s, late 80s, 90s. And that was probably about the time I started really falling in love with hockey and watching it a lot. We grew up about an hour south of St. Louis. I grew up in Potosi, Missouri.
Yep.
So it was a bit of a drive to get to the arena. So we didn't go. I don't think I ever got to watch a game in the arena, but I did watch, obviously a lot on TV, on KPLR or whatever the station was at the time. And then when I got into high school and could drive myself, I'd go up and watch games at Kiel Center or Enterprise Center. And that's kind of, where I got to witness a little bit more firsthand.
Yeah, and Ken Wilson, Joe Micheletti on KPLR, that's the voice of my childhood. I watched a lot of blues games and with those two as the voice of the blues, and I miss Ken Wilson a lot, but that's an aside. But 80s and 90s, so there were a lot of great moments in blues history during that time. You had the Monday Night Miracle with Doug Wickenheiser. You had Wayne Gretzky coming to St. Louis, and then of course up until today, modern times when you had the Stanley Cup run. So just in your time as a blues fan, like what memories stick out to you the most? Like what's your and actually what's your favorite blues memory?
I mean, the easiest one, of course, winning the Stanley Cup is forever and ever always going to be my favorite blues memory. Just the whole run up to the Cup was an amazing experience. But growing up, watching, I remember I used to have like this like poster that I made on my wall, and I kept track of all the goals that the players had scored. And I remember like Jeff Brown having a great year one year and having a bunch of goals listed for Jeff Brown, which was, kind of unusual because he's a defenseman. And so that was kind of cool. And, I kept track. And, I think McDonald's had like the triple cheeseburger special for Brett Hull because of all his hat tricks. And I mean, a lot of those things, and Curtis Joseph. And I love the 90s blues, Brendan Shanahan and Adam Oates and all those guys. It was a lot of fun playing. And I got, you talked about 1994, the NHL 94 or whatever game, and I had that. And that was a big influence musically too, because, a lot of the organ music in that game. And it's kind of cool now because I'm in NHL. I've been in NHL series since, I think, 2013.
Really?
Doing all the blues stuff. Yeah. So if you go play the EA Sports NHL series and you score a goal or whatever, so when the Blues Go Marching In is by me, it's my
Awesome.
recording, and then so Let's Go Blues at the end. So that's kind of cool. But lots of fun memories. The Gretzky trade in the '90s. I'm nostalgic for the old clown jersey just because that was all I knew. I mean, they always wore red in the jerseys whenever I was a kid, even if it was just the striping. But
yeah, definitely. And let's go back to the mid '90s. You mentioned the McDonald's, the double cheeseburger thing. Did you ever have the Brett Hull comics that they sold at McDonald's?
I do remember those. Yeah.
Yeah, I had them for the longest time, and then I moved, and I lost them in a move somewhere, and I actually went on eBay and bought them back. They're absolutely worthless, but it's just one of those things that when you're growing up in the '90s, that kind of sticks out to you, and just as a kind of a nice memory. And they're actually just off camera, just to my right on the bookshelf there.
Yeah.
And then of course, I played a lot of NHL '94. Were the Blues your team in NHL '94, or did you have another go-to team?
I think I pretty much always was the Blues, but I did enjoy playing as the Hartford Whalers because I enjoyed Brass Bonanza.
Yes,
Brass Bonanza was their goal song.
Yes, I love Brass Bonanza. That's actually up until recently was my ringtone, for the longest time. It's so good. And I'll admit, I played a lot with the Blues in NHL '94, but my go-to team was Pittsburgh because Yager and Lemieux were absolutely insane in that game. And I just love doing those two, those two breaking up on the ice. It was NHL '94. I could do a whole episode about NHL '94, but we're not here for that. Jeremy Boyer, blues organist, here joining us on Bluenotes. So you got all this, growing up with the blues and as a big fan, and then you got your musical love, that's building up. How were you able to parlay all this into the blues gig? I mean, how did you get the blues job?
Well, I went to Southeast Missouri State, my alma mater. When I was down there, I had emailed the baseball coach for the SEMO baseball and asked, hey, could I come play organ for some games? I kind of dabbled in it a little bit at that time, and he's like, sure, come on down, we'll see what you do. And I played a game, and they loved it, and they wanted me to come back, and I pretty much played every SEMO baseball game for the next, even after graduating, for like 6 years.
Really?
I'd play for basketball at the Show Me Center down there with the band, but when the band was out for winter break at college, sometimes the band director would say, hey Jeremy, you want to fill in and play tonight? And I'd come in, I'd play for the college basketball games, and I knew the fight song and I knew all these different things, so kind of got that experience. And then after I graduated, like I said, I kept playing there at SEMO, and I was living in Cape Girardeau and working in that area. And a friend of mine who I'd gone to college with was interning in Memphis for the Memphis Redbirds, the Cardinals AAA team, and they needed an organist, and she's like, hey, I know a guy. And by then I was already taking lessons with Ernie Hayes, and they called me and said, can you take me out to the ball game? Can you play Here Comes the King? I'm like, yeah, of course. So went down there and I started playing in Memphis, and I posted some videos of things I'd played in Memphis on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, and I think the Blues came across that and were interested in it, and gave me a call and had me come up and talk with them and interview with them, and it just kind of clicked, and it worked, and they liked what I could do and what I could bring to the team, and they liked that I knew the traditions, and I was a fan, and it was just a good mix.
So it was just a good lesson, just for anyone that's looking into, like, maybe I want to work for the Blues someday. You're an example of putting in the work, at college, and then, really just getting noticed. I mean, it sounds, your story kind of sounds like a kind of a lucky break story, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I definitely put in the time. I mean, even now, like doing Cardinals games and stuff, there's players who I'll recognize from when I was in the minor leagues as well. Earning my stripes, who I was down there with in Memphis and got to see play down there. And I do feel like I worked my way up a little bit because, I started off in college ball basically and went to, the minor leagues, and I did my time there, and I probably spent more than I made trying to drive to Memphis and stay down there. And, it was about that, getting that experience and taking my lessons with Ernie Hayes.
You get the job as the organist, and my co-host Wags, who can't be here with us, he underwent surgery this week, but he asked me from his hospital bed to ask you, what are some of the perks of being a blues organist?
I get to go to every game and I don't have to pay. I mean, I guess
It's a great deal.
Cool. Yeah. You know, I mean, I get to see the players sometimes. I usually don't bother them because they got a job to do. You know, but it's cool just to like get to be up close. You know, I'll see. You know, when Marty Brodeur was working with the team, it's like that's Marty Brodeur. I walked in one time and Wayne Gretzky was getting to the arena. This is like early when I first started playing for the Blues, and he was still coaching the Arizona Coyotes at the time. And came in. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. That's Wayne Gretzky. So I stopped inside the security entrance and waited for him. He got out of his cab, comes in the security entrance, and I was like, Mr. Gretzky, can I please get a picture with you? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I'd asked the concession stand worker, I guess, walking by, a young kid. I was like, hey, can you get our picture together? And I had him handed him my phone and or my camera. And he took the picture, but he goes, but first, before I take this, you got to tell me who this is. I'm like, are you kidding me? And Gretzky goes, hi, I'm Brett Hall. Nice to meet you. The kid had no idea the rest of the day. Gretzky never corrected himself. You know, he just went on as, hey, I'm Brett Hall. So that was pretty cool. You know, I got to play on the Blues were nice enough to let me play on the stage during the Stanley Cup parade rally underneath the arch, and that was pretty awesome. And being behind the full team while they're on the risers. So
Yeah.
there's definitely some cool things.
Yeah, I remember seeing the photos of you, on stage with the Stanley Cup. I mean, what was that like? I mean, just being up on that stage in front of, thousands of fans, lifting the most, treasured trophy in sports.
Definitely a moment I'll never forget. You know, the Blues gave my family VIP passes to be like in the front too, so they're there. And if you look in the picture of me holding up the cup in the background, you can see my family going crazy in the picture, which is it's pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty awesome. And then, everybody's like, how heavy was the cup? Was it really heavy? I'm like, man, I didn't feel a thing. It was nice.
Yeah, it had to have been a great moment. Now you have experience, being in front of a live crowd, obviously, because, and part of that is because when you're at Enterprise Center, you're not like tucked away in a press box or, in some secluded area. You're right out there with the fans. So is that the way you prefer it, being out there, and feeling the energy of that crowd?
Yeah, I love it. I love being out with the fans. I mean, I feel like I'm a fan, although I do have a job to do, and I'm professional with how I handle that. But, getting to be out with the fans, and you really get to feel how they're feeling, and you can pour that into the emotion of what you're doing and what you're playing. And I feel like that's a more authentic experience. You really feel that, I don't play anything the same way twice, I feel like. And, I feel like that depends on what's happening in the game, how the fans are feeling, how I approach that. When we score a goal and it's 6-0, it's not going to feel like it does when we've scored a goal in the last seconds of the third period. You're going to feel that difference, I feel like. And that's some of that energy I draw from the fans around me.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to my next question. Going back to the Stanley Cup playoffs, like I remember, you were there for the watch parties, for Game 7, and it was a full crowd. I mean, there was no game on the ice, but there may as well have been with the way that crowd was. I was in there as well, and so like when everything's going crazy and the clock's ticking down and the Blues are about to win the Stanley Cup, something that we've all waited our entire lives for. Is it harder or easier to play the organ whenever you got all this excitement and energy built up in you?
I mean, you just like the players, you've thought about that most of your life, how that moment would be and how that would feel. Your heart's pounding in your chest, but I felt like it was pretty easy. It was just you kind of just let go. You don't think about it when you've done this so long and you play for so long. It just comes out of you naturally, and it just poured out of me whenever I got to play. It was just, exuberation, and I kind of felt like that came out in my music as well. But it was just definitely a special moment.
Yeah, it looked like you were having fun that night, and that's probably got to be what, top 3, top 5 all time moments for you as a not just as an organist but as a fan.
Yeah, absolutely, top, maybe the top. I mean, there.
Yeah, I mean, Stanley, Blues Stanley Cup wins don't come around often, so I definitely get that. But Now we got to, bring the energy down just a little bit because, of course, we got to talk about COVID. It took away the organist chair from you, as the season kind of wound down. I did see you did some, videos from home, while the Blues were in the playoffs this year. But how much did you miss being an Enterprise, during the playoffs?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's cool to be there, obviously, and get to do something you love, but you miss all the people that are around you, and it really is like a family. And for the season ticket holders, they know what I'm talking about, and even just some of the other workers around the building you get to see every night. You miss that camaraderie with them, and but yeah, I mean, it's different whenever it's not, you're playing a home game, and it's cool that they involve the organists, but you'd much rather have been there in person.
Yeah, definitely. But did you think it was a nice gesture that they still involved you and they involved Charles Glenn? So at the even though you can't, be there in person, at least you were still part of the product.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's, it was a nice gesture by the NHL to invite the organists and the anthem singers, and it did make it feel a little bit more like home, I guess, getting to hear that in the building at Rogers Place. And yeah, you'd absolutely rather been there in the building at your arena in St. Louis.
Yeah, I can't wait to go to Blues games again. It's been far too long. I'm jonesing here, like really bad for some live hockey. I do public address for McKendree hockey, and I don't know if they're gonna have a season or not. But I hope they do, just so I can at least be just near an ice again. The coldness of the ice and even just the atmosphere of it. I miss it so much. But we have to endure. We have to live in this COVID era. So, how have you been occupying your time? I know you did a couple Cardinals games this week.
Yeah. So I also work full time for St. Francis of Assisi, the Catholic Church in South County off Telegraph, and
okay,
that's like my full time job. So it's always organ music all the time. So I play all their masses, and even over the lockdown, we were doing live stream masses, and it was like literally like me and my wife who sings with me and the priest. I mean, there was 3 people in the whole church, and we live stream it. So even during the lockdown, I was still going in and working and doing what I'm supposed to do, and that's continued obviously now. And now there's more masses and there's more people who are able to attend, and so still keeping busy on that front with my full-time job. But yeah, this past week playing 2 doubleheaders for the Cardinals at Busch Stadium. Was pretty cool. It was different. I mean, it was a little bit of a slice of normalcy for the fact that, you're around, at least in the scoreboard room with the other people you're used to working with there, but it was different walking through the concourse and there's nothing. It's almost apocalyptical, just to see everybody gone and there are games being played.
Yeah, it was very surreal watching Thursday night. Like the Chiefs, for instance, they just won the Super Bowl, and they only had 15,000 people at Arrowhead. It's just a weird time we're living in right now. But I know some things are kind of getting back to, I don't want to say normal, but we're at least like taking a step towards where we were before March. And I'm actually holding you from going to a wedding right now to perform there. But I want to finish off here with some rapid fire questions. Real quick. First things first. Your favorite song to play?
It's got to be When the Blues Go Marching In. I know that's probably it's easy, but man, it doesn't get much better than that. I feel like after a goal or a big moment or after a win, I love playing it.
Favorite current player?
Oh man, I love Jordan Bennington. I know that he'd probably rather had a better postseason this year, but I love the fire that he has and his attitude and. Is kind of doesn't take any crap kind of nonsense, any nonsense kind of attitude. And I like that. I like that fiery competitiveness in Jordan Bennington.
A favorite retired player? I know you mentioned a few names earlier.
Pronger, maybe. Same thing. I like his fiery play and what he brought and his tenacity to the game. I loved watching him play.
Your favorite era of hockey? Do you prefer the current game or do you prefer the older style?
I don't know. I think they each have their benefits maybe, and but I grew up mostly in the the 90s and love watching that style of hockey too. But yeah, either way, I just love watching hockey.
Your favorite musician?
Ooh, that's tough. That's like picking between children.
Oh, no.
I don't know if I could narrow it down to just one. I love, lots of different styles and genres of music, and it'd be tough to just narrow it down to one. I mean, I could be listening to Mozart one second, and then the next second, Snoop Dogg comes on. It's just like, it's all over the place for me.
Mozart to Snoop Dogg. The best musicians pick from a wide variety of musical backgrounds to take inspiration from. So I like that. I like that a lot. Favorite restaurant that no one knows about?
I really like, let me think. Smokey Robinson's is a place that was in Kimmswick. Now they're in Peevely, Missouri. I live down around Kimmswick, Missouri, and great barbecue. They have great smoked meats. Right now they're at I think Highway Z, not far from I-55.
Okay.
Take 55 to Z, and they're in Peevely, and they're just right there in the corner. And a couple I know who owns the place, and man, their smoked meat is it's great. Barbecue is outstanding. Definitely would recommend you guys, if you're around that area, to go by and check them out.
Yeah, I actually spent some time growing up in Peevely, and I know exactly where you're talking about. So I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm actually heading down to Bonne Terre after we're done recording, so I may have to swing by there along the way. And then finally, the most important question of all: if you're in the St. Louis area, Provel cheese, yay or nay?
I don't mind Provel cheese, but not to disappoint a lot of St. Louisans, I don't like thin crust. They have a thicker crust pizza, but Provel's, it's fine.
Okay, because that's the most divisive question of all among St. Louisans and in out-of-towners is you either love it or hate it. It seems, and you seem to be in a like it not love it category. So that's fair. That's fair. I'm actually right alongside you. I think Provel's fine, but that's just me. That's just me. Anyway, Jeremy Boyer, blues organist. Anything you want to promote? Where can we find you online?
Jabs Music, JABS Music, on Twitter and Instagram. Same thing for YouTube, youtube.com/Jabs Music. You can find content there, or you can reach out to me if you have questions, or sometimes I'll get requests, and sometimes I'll play them, sometimes it just depends on what it is. But that's the best way to get a hold of me.
All right, Jeremy Boyer, blues organist. Hope to see you performing again at Enterprise Center sooner rather than later, and hopefully we're all safe and okay, and everything's going to be fine. Let's just hope anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thanks a lot, bud.
Thank you.
Did you know that your favorite band also loves your favorite hockey team? If you love hockey and you love music, you're going to love Bar Down Breakdown, a podcast that explores the crossover between alternative music and the sport we love, hockey.
Every NHL player wants to be in a band, and every band guy wants to be in a pro athlete.
With guests from all over the globe, come along with us as we interview some of the most captivating names in alternative music and talk about why we love hockey and how it's influenced us.
There was for a few seconds, a thought of maybe we should wear Montreal jerseys, and the NHL was like, I think you should stay neutral. And we're like, yeah, you know what? You're probably right.
So tune in every Tuesday on the Hockey Podcast Network, where we'll have a brand new guest and a unique look into the bridge between hockey and music.
And welcome back to Bluenotes here. As by the way, I wanted to take this time to mention that, in case you were listening to the Jeremy Boyer interview and you were wondering, hey, wait a sec, what Brett Hall comics, what is he talking about? The Golden Adventures of Brett Hall. I plucked these off of eBay. Like I said, I think I got all 3 of them for like $10. They individually go, I think, for about $3 to $5 on eBay as we speak. So just in case you're wondering, they're still out there in the wild. The Golden Adventures of Brett Hall, and the whole. I remember the comics. I'm not going to open these because these are still sealed from the '90s, like they're going to skyrocket in value or something. But they featured Brett Hall, I guess, getting amnesia or something, and then he ends up going to the future where hockey is played by robots, and he's got to literally, I think, save the world or save the St. Louis Blues from annihilation, or it's weird. It's also been a long time since I actually read the comics, but there you go, The Golden Adventures of Brett Hull. Pick them up on eBay. They are still cheap, even after all this time. They were 99 cents when you went to McDonald's, and they have not appreciated much in value. Let's just say that. So, we're going to move on now to the Garage Happy Hour with Tom Ackerman. This week featured Bob Plager and Barrett Jackman. And it was just a good catch-up conversation. Again, as I said earlier, these Garage Happy Hours are just kind of a friendly chat. Tom Ackerman has a beer. I think Barrett Jackman and Bob Plager were drinking some Bud Light seltzers. At least Jackman was, anyway. I don't know if Plager's a drinker or not. But it was a good conversation, and I'm going to play some clips from that here. And the first clip I'm going to play is Tom Ackerman talking to Bob Plager about the Stanley Cup run. And I got to warn you before we play this, Bob Plager's audio had some issues. You can still hear him, you can still understand him, but it was like he was sitting on his lapel mic or something. I don't know what the heck happened, but you can hear him. It's just, I'm gonna warn you though, it's not the greatest quality. So, but let's go ahead but it's Bob Plager. So we're gonna give Bob Plager the benefit of the doubt here. So here's Bob Plager reflecting on the Stanley Cup run.
Well, I'm still riding the wave. It's still good everywhere you go. I don't think the people. Yeah, we got beat out early, but we're still talking about the Stanley Cup and what has happened and gone on this year. This to get beat out, I think it's a big learning lesson for a lot of the players too. It's you got to take something from it, and I'm sure our players did. And plus, there's a few things we have to work on now. Like management has seen, well, if we're going to go any further, we're going to have to have some holes we got to fill up. But it was great. It's been a strange year, but they say you'll always remember 2020. I said, no, I'll remember 2019.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Bobby still hasn't paid for a meal, so it's good.
And never will again.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah, Bob Plager should never pay for a meal ever again, seriously. And as you heard, Barrett Jackman's audio sounds fine, and here is Jackman talking about the Cup run.
How satisfying was that, Jax, to see him finally lift that beautiful Stanley Cup?
It was awesome. We were together in Boston for that Game 7, and I think Bobby put on probably about 25,000 steps, just pacing the corridors, just waiting for that final moment. Looking back, he was sitting on the couch when the Blues went up by a couple, and finally told him, like, Bobby, get down there. You got to be there when it's hoisted. And it was pretty special for all of us to see Bobby, who put the blood, sweat, and tears into this team for so long. That he was a big part of it.
Well, as special as it was for me, and when I was on the ice, we were running around. It was, and you're looking up, and it's special. But you take a minute and start to think now how special it was for the city. And there's been fans around here since day one, and 40 years, 50 years. So my mind went to them and all the fans. And as great as it was for me, it was so special for those people.
And then you got to spend some time with that cup, didn't you, Bobby?
Well, I spent some time there. I went all over with it. And it was all over the city. I don't know what place it was that around there. And I had my friend with me, Chaser, and I had my other guy. Well, he was with me, and he wasn't. And he was there, and he wasn't. Brett Hull. So we'd lose him every once in a while.
Depending on how late the cup was out, right?
Oh gosh, Brett Hull, yeah, definitely. I mean, he's legendary, all-time drunk, and you gotta love Brett Hull. I mean, he was my idol growing up, and God, Brett Hull's drunken exploits after the Blues won the Cup were just about as legendary as the Cup win itself and everything that went into it. You gotta love it. Another thing that they talked about a little bit, and this is kind of an interesting angle here. So, we often heckle fans of newer teams for not knowing hockey, not knowing how to support hockey and watch hockey. You get Vegas fans get heckled a lot. Seattle fans are going to get heckled a lot. We still pick on Nashville, although in some cases that's rightfully so. But here, Bob Plager recounts how he had to help educate St. Louisans on hockey in the late 60s and early 70s when the Blues came to be at all. So let's go ahead and hear from that.
50 plus years ago, when you broke in with the organization, that this city didn't know a lot about hockey. I mean, there was some hockey history, but you really had to teach. And you actually literally did teach, didn't you, Bob? Teach people the game?
Well, I know our first year, people there, it was 4,000 people, 5,000 people, that building that went on. And towards the end, we won some big games. People got more involved, in going to the finals, Stanley Cup finals. The second year, third year, but you know who was responsible big time for hockey here and the people learning? We didn't televise games. Maybe 11 games were televised there. Dan Kelly, the way he announced the hockey game, the way he was, people, in fact, everybody I talked to now, when they were little kids, they had their transistor radio. They listened in KMOX. They listened on the radio. They listened to the game. Dan Kelly and the way he announced it, you were there. So we did our job on the ice with Dan Kelly. I mean, he was a big reason why these fans come in there. Dan did a great job. We played terrible on the road. We'd have a bad game on the road. We come back and people say, you guys were robbed. You had a chance. Boy, you guys played good. We just up to Dan. You did it again. You made it sound good. Dan Kelly, what went on here? It was a love affair. The Solomons that had it here. The singing that came into it. After every time we won a championship or we sent something, come back to the airport, it's packed, people are there, and it was, it's a great ride.
Yeah, and Dan Kelly is the former radio announcer for the St. Louis Blues. Also did some TV as well. And you may not know Dan Kelly if you don't live in St. Louis or are not a Blues fan, but Dan Kelly was basically, as Plager said, he was the teacher of hockey for a lot of St. Louisans that grew up in the 70s and even up until he retired and eventually passed in the late 80s. So yeah, Dan Kelly is the man around here in St. Louis. They named a press box after him actually, and his son John is the TV guy for the St. Louis Blues now. He's alongside Darren Pang, and that's one of the best pairings in hockey. And I don't just say that as a Blues fan; I say that as a hockey fan in general. Panger's great. Kelly's probably top 10. I think that's a pretty safe top 10 for John Kelly. And then finally here, both wore number 5 for St. Louis. Bob Plager's number wasn't retired for the longest time. When Jackman came into the league, he took number 5. And I always found that kind of curious, just because of who Bob Plager was. Of course, Bob Plager eventually got his number retired after Jackman left town. But here's the two of them talking a little bit about how Jackman ended up with the number 5. And turns out Plager did have a little something to do with it.
Barrett, you two have a special relationship wearing the same number. How far back do you go? Do you recall the first time that you met Bob Plager?
Yeah, the first time I met Bob was at the draft in Boston. And, after the, he was part of some of the meetings that were going on before that. But, he welcomed my family, my mom and my sisters into to one of the suites in the hotel after the game. And all the brass were there and a bunch of the scouts. And, Bobby was coming over telling some true stories to my mom and had her rolling. And but he made us all feel very comfortable from day one. So we definitely owe him a lot to make the transition to St. Louis pretty easy for me.
Well, I'd known Brett long before I met him. One of our scouts, Pat Janelle, was our scout. He was a good friend of mine, good hockey player, the toughest there was, and a great coach, and scouting for us. And long before I met him, Patty Janelle said, "There's a player. I don't know if we'll get him, but he's old-time hockey. Your brother would love this guy. Would love the way he played." So it was very special. And we did draft him. Patty was the happiest guy in the building when we drafted him. So I watched him play, and because of Patty Janelle, he was a friend of mine. And what my number was, the number 5 was there. So it was great. It was nice to go there and watch number 5 on the ice. You worry about your number. You don't say no, but you have a number, and you know who's going to wear the number next. Who's going to wear it next. And, wasn't being used. So he's the right guy to get it. It's not
What
like
that
my
means?
brother Bart. When Bart first retired there, he retired. Number 8 was worn by Steve Durbano. So after that, we figured we got to retire Bart's number.
That's a funny part at the end there. Yeah, I mean, Barclay, they retired his number pretty quickly once, that no name got his number. But Barrett Jackman, he served the number 5 well in St. Louis, and I think most Blues fans would definitely agree on that. So again, there's a lot more of that conversation with those two and Tom Ackerman that you can watch at your own time. We have the link in the description of this podcast below, so feel free to watch that. And in the meantime, that's going to do it. Oh, wait, no, one more thing before we go real quick. So, of course, Bluenotes is a part of the Hockey Podcast Network family. And very recently, we had Hurricane Laura come through and just devastate Western Louisiana. And, of course, your first thought might be, why am I talking about this? There's no hockey in Western Louisiana or Louisiana, period. We do have a couple of New Orleans hosts. In fact, Trainwreck is from New Orleans. Devin Snow, who hosts Rippin' Biscuits, is also in New Orleans, and he and Trainwreck are part of the Hold the Mayo website and online enterprise. But on Rippin' Biscuits, which is the hockey show that Devin hosts here for the Nashville Predators, his co-host is a man named Craig Granger. And Craig Granger, he lives in Lake Charles. And I'm going to show you why I'm mentioning him here. He lost his home. He lost his home in Hurricane Laura. He was one of many that suffered just catastrophic damage when the eye wall passed over his home in Lake Charles. And we want to help him get back on his feet. He's a good guy. He's a crazy redneck, but he's our redneck, and we love the guy. And so what we did for the Hockey Podcast Network, we set up a GoFundMe to raise money for whatever he needs to get back on his feet. His family, his 2 cats, lost their home, and we just a little bit goes a long way. We've had a couple $10, $20 donations, heck, $5. He'd be even happy with that. But we would like to see him get back on his feet again, and he would do the same if it was for me or Wags or Trainwreck or anyone else within the Hockey Podcast Network family. So all you need to do is go to GoFundMe. I'll link it in the description as well for the podcast, and then when I do the final videos for this on YouTube and Facebook, just go to GoFundMe and type in Lake Charles Granger Relief Fund and just help out if you can. I mean, you don't have to offer much. Again, just whatever it costs for a pack of smokes, I'm sure he'd be happy to have from you. So let's help him get back on his feet. But in the meantime, that'll do it for me. I want to thank you for listening and watching, because without you, there is no me. There is no Wags, who we'll hopefully have back soon. There is no Trainwreck, who we'll hopefully have back soon. And there is no Bluenotes. I'm Tom Franklin, reminding you to not be a chump and always play to the whistle. And for our video viewers, let's go ahead and play out this episode with a little bit of some Jeremy Boyer magic. You hear this at the end of every Bluenotes episode lately, and it is Jeremy Boyer himself playing the Blues March. You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network, your home for hockey talk covering every team in the NHL. New episodes every Monday. Download at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.